Okay, everybody, just take a second, look at your calendars. It's February 2026.
It is.
And if you've been in like any store in the last week, you know exactly what's coming. The pastel foil chocolate eggs. They're everywhere.
They show up earlier every single year. I'm convinced of it.
They really do. I think I saw a chocolate bunny next to a Valentine's heart. It was very confusing.
Right.
But we are not here today to talk about the candy industrial complex. We're looking at the calendar for a different reason. We are staring down a really big seasonal shift. We're talking about Lent.
That's right. The 6 weeks leading up to Easter.
Exactly. And I have to be honest with you, and I feel like a lot of our listeners might be in the same boat. When I hear Lent, my brain usually goes to this kind of grumpy place. I think of my friends giving up caffeine and just being impossible until like noon. Or people giving up social media, but then posting a huge announcement about it first.
It can feel a little performative sometimes, yeah.
It just feels like a season of don't eat this, don't do that. But we got our hands on a document that really, it kind of flipped that for me.
Okay.
It's an internal guide from the Cunbit Education Ministry prepared for this 2026 season. And what's cool about it is that it doesn't just list rules. It almost treats Lent like an engineering problem.
That is a great way to put it. I was really struck by the depth of this guide. It's not just a religious pamphlet. It breaks down the mechanics of the whole thing.
Right.
You know, the math of the calendar, which is way more complex than you'd think, the linguistics, and even the neuroscience behind some of their plans for this year.
The neuroscience part is so wild. We are definitely getting to that, this whole handwriting thing they're doing. But I want to start with the basics because this guide made me realize I've just been like autopiloting through this season for years.
It's really easy to do. Traditions just become habits after a while.
So looking at the source, the first thing is the timeline, February 2026. The guide says it all kicks off on a Wednesday? Ash Wednesday.
Right.
And I have to ask the obvious question. When I say Ash Wednesday, what do you picture?
I mean, for most people, it's someone walking around with a dark smudge, like a cross on their forehead.
Exactly. And I've always found that a little intense, Feels very ancient. But I never stop to ask, where does the ash come from? Like, do they just sweep out a fireplace?
I think most people think it's just, I don't know, generic dust or something. But the guide is super specific. There's a recipe.
A recipe.
Yeah. The ashes that they use to mark foreheads in 2026, they're made by burning the palm branches from last year's Palm Sunday.
Wait, what? From 2025? So
Yeah.
they're recycling.
In a really profound way, yeah. Think about the cycle there. Palm Sunday is the week before Easter. It's a high point. It's a parade.
Right. People waving the green palm branches, cheering.
Total victory lap. But the tradition says you save those branches. You don't throw them away.
Okay.
They sit there for a whole year. They dry out, get brittle. And then right before the next Lent begins, you take those symbols of victory and burn them. Wow.
You burn them down to create the dust of repentance for the new season.
That's actually kind of heavy. I never made that connection.
It's a powerful contrast, isn't it? You're taking the symbol of celebration and reducing it to its most basic element.
You're literally turning last year's party into this year's humility.
That's the core of it. The guide points out that in the Old Testament, ash was the universal sign for sorrow. It wasn't a metaphor. If you were grieving, you literally covered yourself in ash. It's a physical act of humility.
It's a reality check.
It's a memento mori. Remember that you are dust. The text says it's a time to look at the cross and then look at yourself. It frames the whole journey.
Which brings us to the structure of that journey, because the guide gets into the history, and I just assumed Lent was day one stuff. First century, boom, here's a 40-day calendar.
You'd think so, would you? It feels so established. But the source is clear that it was a slow evolution. In the very early church, they didn't have this 40-day structure.
So what did they do? Well, the focus was mostly on the baptisms happening on Easter. So the Lent period was just the final prep for those people about to join the church. And it was like fasting for 2 or 3 days.
2 or 3 days. That sounds so much more manageable. I could do that.
I'm sure a lot of people today would prefer that schedule. But as it grew, it became more formalized. And the guide points to a specific date, 601 AD.
601, that's very specific.
It is. That's when Pope Gregory the Great standardized the dates and the structure that we basically still use. And this is a real aha moment in the guide.
Why is that? Because Cunbit is a Protestant community.
Exactly. And usually when you start quoting 7th century popes to a Protestant group, walls can go up.
Right, a sense of that's not our tradition.
But the guide makes this crucial historical point. 601 AD is almost 1,000 years before the Reformation.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
This whole structure, it isn't Catholic versus Protestant. It comes from the shared root system. It belongs to the whole tree.
That's a really cool way to look at it. It's like finding a family heirloom that's older than the family feud. It predates the split.
That's a perfect analogy. It frames it as a shared heritage, not some denominational quirk.
Okay, so we've got this structure from 601. But let's talk about the branding, because the guide mentions the linguistics, which I found fascinating. In English, we call it Lent, which it's a terrible name.
It's not the most exciting word, no.
It sounds so dour. It sounds like lint in your pocket. Heavy.
It doesn't exactly scream fun, but the original meaning is much lighter. The source explains that Lent comes from the Anglo-Saxon word Lenten.
Lengthen. And what does that mean?
It just means spring.
Wait, really? Just the
That-
season?
Yep, the spring season. It's about the lengthening of the days.
Okay, that changes the whole vibe. So people weren't saying, I'm entering the season of sorrow. They were saying, I'm entering spring.
Exactly. New life, the thaw after winter. It's hopeful. But, and this is a sharp contrast, the Korean term used in the text is totally different.
Right, Sasumjeol.
Sasunjeol. And this one does not mean spring.
What does it translate to?
It translates literally to 4 times 10 days.
4 times 10.
Yeah, so 40. It's the technical spec, the season of 40 days.
I love that difference. The English term is the vibe, it's spring, and the East Asian term is the specs. It is exactly 40 days.
It really shows how different cultures process things, but both names point to that number. 40 isn't arbitrary.
No, the guide says this is the big biblical number.
It's a direct line to Jesus praying in the wilderness for 40 days. The idea is that the church is sort of mimicking that period of intense preparation.
Okay, so 40 days, but here's where the math drove me crazy.
Yes, the math. This is where people get tripped up.
It says 40 days, 4 times 10. But I'm looking at the 2026 calendar. Ash Wednesday is February 18th. Easter is April 5th.
Right.
I counted it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
If you count the days between Feb 18 and April 5, you get 46.
Not 40.
You do. You get 46.
So what's going on? Was Pope Gregory just bad at math? Let gives. No, we're not being lied to. This is the calculation puzzle the source mentions. And honestly, it's a loophole or theological rule, I guess, that I think a lot of people are going to appreciate.
Okay.
The Western Church rule is you count backward from the Saturday before Easter.
Yeah.
But you skip the Sundays.
You skip them. They don't count.
They do not count toward the 40 days of fasting.
Why not? It's like a cheat day?
Theologically, yes. The guide explains every Sunday, even during Lent, is a little Easter, a weekly celebration of the resurrection. So you can't be fasting and mourning on a day that's meant for celebration.
That is fantastic.
Also,
So if someone gave up chocolate for Lent on Sundays,
technically, according to the historical math, Sundays are exempt.
I feel like we just liberated a lot of people with that fact. You can have the chocolate on Sunday.
Hey, just reporting what's in the source material. But it's an important balance, right? You
Yeah.
can't just grind for 46 days straight.
Okay, so let's apply the math to 2026, just so it's clear.
Right? So Easter 2026 is April 5th.
April 5th. Got it.
If you take your calendar and count back 40 days, jumping over every Sunday, you land exactly on Wednesday, February 18th.
Which is Ash Wednesday.
It's Ash Wednesday. That's when the clock starts.
Okay, so we have the math, the history, the Ash recipe. But the guide then moves into the mindset, which I think is so important. Because it's easy to get bogged down in the rules, and it just becomes a checklist.
Right, and checklists are exhausting.
Totally. But the guide uses this metaphor I loved. It compares Lent to a party.
Yes. This was such a refreshing take. The source says Lent is not the destination, it's the prep work for the grand festival.
Which is Easter.
Easter's the main event,
Yeah.
and the guide asks, if you get invited to a huge, important party, what do? You don't just roll out of bed and show up.
No way. You shower.
Yeah.
You figure out what you're wearing. You check your attitude at the door so you're actually fun to be around.
Exactly. The text calls it grooming. Lent is the spiritual grooming phase. It's organizing your heart and mind so when Easter arrives, you're actually ready for it.
I really like that. It reframes the whole suffering aspect. It's not suffering for its own sake. It's
Functional.
entirely functional. And the standard ways people do this, fasting, prayer, charity, they're the tools to wash up before the party.
Speaking of tools, this is where we get to the most interesting part of this 2026 guide for me. This Cunebit ministry, they aren't just telling kids to sit quietly. They have a very specific, very analog plan.
They do. The scripture writing campaign.
Handwriting. In 2026.
In 2026.
I mean, we're living in a world of AI assistants. These kids are digital natives. Why on earth are they making them handwrite the Bible?
And that's what's so interesting. The plan is for the children to read the four Gospels and physically write out a few verses every single day of Lent.
Is it just busy work
Yeah.
to keep them occupied?
No, and this is where the guide cites some research touches on the neuroscience of it.
Uh-huh.
It mentions that the physical act of moving your hand stimulates the brain more actively than just reading or typing. You know, I've heard this about taking notes. If you type them on a laptop, you just transcribe. If you write them by hand, you have to synthesize, and you remember it better.
Precisely. It's about engaging the whole person, your mind, and your body. If we use that party metaphor again, it's not just thinking about getting ready for the party, it's physically putting on the clothes. It makes the preparation tangible.
It's also about speed, isn't it?
How do you mean?
Well, you can scroll past a verse on your phone in, like
Yeah.
a second. You cannot handwrite a paragraph in a second.
Yeah.
It's physically impossible. It forces you to slow down.
That's a great point. It forces a pace. In our world of instant everything, making someone slow down to the speed of a pen, that's a profound exercise in itself. You have to sit with the words.
It feels like a rebellion against efficiency.
In a way, it is. Efficiency isn't the goal. Depth is.
But the guide has a very specific warning here, so people don't get the wrong idea.
It does, and this is so important. You can imagine it becoming legalistic, right? Oh no, I didn't write my verses today, I'm in trouble. The guide is very clear that the writing itself, the ink on the page, that doesn't save you.
It's not a magic spell.
Exactly. The text says only Jesus cleanses and invites them into the resurrection. The writing is just a tool. It's a method to focus your mind on that reality. It's not the source of salvation itself.
That's a really healthy distinction to make.
Yeah.
It keeps the focus on the meaning, not just the activity.
Absolutely. It keeps the ritual from overtaking the reason for it.
So if we zoom out,
Hmm.
we've covered a lot from a single PDF. We started with the burnt palms of last year becoming the ashes for this year.
We looked at the linguistic spring versus 40 days.
We solved the math problem. You're welcome again, everyone. Sundays are free.
And we looked at this really tactile, physical practice of handwriting scripture.
It's a really comprehensive look at how a community structures meaning. What stands out to you the most? What's the one nugget you'd take away?
For me, it's the concept of intentional preparation. I think regardless of your religious background, or even if you have none, there's something so powerful in the psychology of taking 40 days to prepare for something.
How so?
We live in a culture that just wants the hack. We want the Easter celebration without the Lenten prep. We want the launch party without the hard development phase. But this guide suggests the joy of the destination is deepened by the rigor of the journey.
Because you're ready for it.
You're ready for it. By taking the time to dress up mentally, the event itself just means more. You perceive it differently because you've been focusing your lens for 6 weeks.
That's a great takeaway. It's the difference between crashing a party and actually preparing for one.
Exactly.
And I can't stop thinking about that Sunday exemption. It's just such a humanizing detail in what could be a very rigid schedule.
It balances discipline with celebration. You need both to sustain any long effort.
Which brings us to the thought we want to leave you with. We talked about how Sundays are little Easters, these built-in mini celebrations.
Right, a release valve so you don't burn out.
So the question for you to mull over is this. If you were designing a period of intense focus in your own life, a big project, a fitness goal, anything, what are your little Easters?
That's a great question. What are the rest days or mini celebrations you would build in to keep the momentum going? Because if you just try to grind for 40 days straight, you might quit by day 12.
Because apparently even a 6th century pope knew you can't just white-knuckle it. You need a Sunday. You need a moment to remember why you're doing the hard work in the first place.
We all need a Sunday.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Whether you're getting ashes on February 18th or just trying to survive until spring, we hope this gave you something to think about.
Stay curious.
See you next time.